We're all driven by our instincts. And what are our instincts? And, you know, that's actually got a lot to do with this whole the battle of the sexes. It's like our instincts, because this whole religion, like the topic that we're talking about, religion has tried to place us as human beings in an arena that we're really not actually in. Like, we are animals. We are biological. And this is me preaching right now, so if you don't believe that what I'm talking, I respect your point of view. I really do. But this is just me saying what I believe. We are biological organisms, no different than any other organism on the planet or in the universe, that are all capable through sensory perception, the 5 senses, of perceiving the reality around us. We all have thoughts, we all have ideas, we all have sight, hearing, taste, whatever. And we're smarter than the rest of the animals. That's the only difference, really. You know, we're smarter than them. And I don't want to get too scientific. If you study anthropology, there's actually a lot of studies, and we talked about this last week, how that happened. Like, you know, some people have theorized that apes ate psychedelics, and their minds grew because they got so creative, and they started having these chemical experiences in their brains, and they just evolved into intellect.
It sounds like a Joe Rogan quote.
It might be. I mean, that might be. What is it? Peterson. You listen to Peterson, right? A lot.
Yeah.
What is his? Do you know anything? What is his thoughts on? Like, is Peterson?
Peterson talks about like as far as like our evolution.
Yeah, like what is Peterson? Because he's a pretty good authority on these kind of things.
He's a Christian. He's got some out there ideas. He talks.
He is
about
a Christian.
Yeah, he is. He talks about psychedelics. He talks about oh man. He talks about the snake in the garden being like a representative of apes hiding from snakes and whatnot and stuff like that. So I mean he's yeah.
So okay,
he's all over.
But he does.
But they do think a lot of our intelligence. Okay, so we were arboreal. We were up in the trees basically, and they think that climate pressure may have been what pushed us out to grasslands, and then just natural mutations that some of us were bipedal.
Tall grasses, you had to see over,
and once
that's why
you
we became bipeds.
You know, see over that, and they think that transition freed up our hands, and then you know, and then next thing, and that it wasn't necessarily like a sequential timeline, you know, per se, but they think that these types of things had to happen.
Right.
You know, they were all contributing factors. We just don't know what percentage this was a factor and what percentage this was a factor.
It's anthropology.
I think that's one of my biggest things about religion that I don't agree with is that we hear about evolution. We hear that all this stuff has happened. We've evolved over multiple millennia, and you hear nothing about that in the Bible. Chad, if you don't mind me asking you a question, what is your thoughts on evolution being from a Christian background?
It doesn't matter to me. No. I read it, it makes sense to me. It's like one of those things, it's like whether because you brought up Prometheus, so I have a whole tangent on Prometheus.
Haven't seen it, so
but
good movie.
It's where basically if God put us here like a flower and planted us, you know, and we grew into something that he then foresaw to breathe his breath into, and that is who we are now. Whatever. I don't.
Well, even among Christians, there's a spectrum.
Oh yeah.
There's seating, and right next to that is like a clockwork God that just set up the rules of physics and only intervenes to tune the clock or whatever. And then on the other end, we've got the micromanaging God who's involved in everything. Well, you know, so there's this entire spectrum for Christians.
And I guess this is me looking from the outside in from Christianity, but for me, it's I feel like it's black and white in my mind. Like either you believe in evolution, or you believe in Christianity, and that that's Adam and Eve
I think
story.
It doesn't matter, and it may be right there in Genesis because he starts off with animals in the sea, and then right there in Genesis.
I'll say this: the Bible never made sense to me at all. I might as well have been reading a Canadian law book, you know,
Well, you know,
It
Canadians
was just-
speak English, right?
well, I'm just saying, just something
just messing
irrelevant
with it,
to
right?
me in my life
When you're
at all.
grasping for an analogy.
Yeah, he went.
Didn't affect
That was
me.
a good
No,
one.
I'm sorry. I didn't mean to bust your balls there.
A French Canadian.
It was French Canadian there.
From Quebec.
Right, there you
No.
go.
But it wasn't until
Or Quebec.
within the past 5 years, honestly, that the Bible had any sort of life in. So there's a whole like a rigid ideology will kill itself. I mean, I think the biggest hindrance to Christianity are Christians, and one of the things that Christians do, that is when you give somebody a Bible's just going to scare the hell out of somebody. You know, it's not going to be like, you know, this is great. It's like, well, like, you know, you said, like, when you talk about fairness, that's the big one to me, is fairness.
So do you think the Christian doctrine, I mean, like, okay, because, you know, let's all be real here. There are massive atrocities occurring, and like Nick said, like, was that fair? Like, do you think, like, what is the answer, like, from your perspective to that question? Like, why did that happen?
Good try.
Is it
Good try.
because from the outside looking in, you're right. It's, you know, so much happens that is not fair.
For God to be a good God, He would have to take care of these people afterwards. I actually believe that death was something that was introduced to mankind. I don't think that. I think that death was something
Well, there's
we.
scientific precedence for that now.
Is there?
Because we think, I mean, there's some really old organisms still on the planet, like super, super old, and we think that maybe death is a mutation to prevent overpopulation. And that original organisms may not have died.
So in essence,
So-
you're saying consciousness is eternal, but maybe physical existence.
I don't know.
It's not.
No, I'm not saying either. I'm saying I'm open to either possibility. But I believe, like, in the Garden of Eden, I think the Book of Genesis is probably the most rich, as a Christian, is the most rich soil of. This is me. This is not doctrine. This is not the
Well,
Bible.
that's all we're wanting.
Yeah, we get that. Yeah.
Is death is merciful.
It's kind of a reward after the life.
No, that death is actually as a result of the path that we've taken in from the beginning of time, you know, of our time to now. That in other words, if we were not meant to die, right? Sin, I believe, is what began the decay of man. It decayed everything, and I'm trying to be brief in my explanation. Probably not a good option for this topic, but however, that essentially God inserted death as a release, as mercy, even for us, so that we could end the suffering.
I think, I mean,
And
it's a sad question.
So
it is.
you're
And
saying
I've-
once sin was introduced, death
was
was an inevitable consequence of it as mercy.
can life die? Because wouldn't not be antithetical to the idea of life itself for it to die? I believe.
Well, if you look at it from a scientific point, I mean, our body still lives on in other things. It's, you know, we become and
what is life? That's
right.
the question.
Sure,
Is
well,
what is life? You have to define that.
That's
in
a
order to-
scientific route, and
Right.
that's perfectly fine. But the science comes from the study of nature, really. So I'm kind of reversing that and saying perhaps there was a fork in the road and we took a different direction. So that's way off in La La Land. I will say though that I'm trying to bring this back around. One of the most impactful stories I've ever heard in my life was about with my parents, who told they lost a kid before I was born at the
I
age
didn't
of
know that.
yeah. She was
No.
well. It was before. I mean, it's a strange thing. It's like my family had a family before me.
like a child, like what,
Yeah.
like a stillbirth. It was
No, it was a
actual-
3-year-old.
Okay, wow,
Drowned,
Man.
and they
damn.
they held each other's. They went in by themselves after she passed, and took each other's arms over Kayleen is her name, and said, "We're not blaming God for this." And that does something to me. And there's something, and
that's a strong belief there.
that, for them to say that, for them to have that moment of like, I can't imagine what you're feeling when you lose a child like that.
They say that's the worst.
I was about to say, coming from being a father, it's not like it's my greatest fear. Like, I go throughout life thinking, oh my God, what if my kids... See, I just said it right there, oh my God.
Right.
What happens if my kids die, But, I mean, it would literally just crush my entire being.
I
don't know if I could function.
I consider it like I feel this bad to lose Mom. Like, if Mom had have lost me...
Right.
I can't, like, the magnitude, I probably can't comprehend. So that makes sense.
But there is like a certain idea there's certain things that we can't, that, it even says in the scripture, God causes it to rain on the righteous and the unjust, or the just and the unjust, and so essentially we're in a stirring pot. That's kind of how we stirred it in a direction, and shit happens. And it's about how we deal with. Do we turn to cynicism, or do we press on?
Well, I want to say that it's really difficult. I mean, I know I asked you how to. That's a very difficult question to try to approach. From the Christian or from the belief side, the team from that corner, it's a very difficult question to approach it, because there is, and that does get into the, maybe there are things beyond comprehension that we simply just do not understand, that we will not understand until, we go through some sort of enlightenment, and we could talk about it for days and we'll just never understand it until it happens. It's, again, like the looking at life thing. So I don't want to say it wasn't an unfair question, but I think it's certainly a difficult question.
When you're talking about faith, it's always hard to explain it, because it wouldn't be called faith if you just didn't have an inert belief in it.
So, but I think one really important thing I want to kind of touch on is what it means to like to me, life, existing and being whatever an entity is just being conscious. And I think for the most part that most of us would agree that that's probably what it means to exist, is to be conscious, right? And
most living things aren't self-aware, though.
But is self-awareness the same as consciousness? I would say no. Yeah. I would say self-awareness is a step, beyond conscious. Like, to be conscious is to have the ability to perceive. And this is how I look at it, and this is how, actually, in the book, in chapter 10, I try to explain it. I don't know if I did through Carson, obviously, but, and this is what I started, when Mom died. I just researched it. I looked up, I watched documentaries. I literally every night now listen to a documentary as I go to bed, and just try to expose myself to as much stuff as I possibly can to give myself the best basis to think about this. But consciousness, to me, is the ability to perceive reality through our five senses, right? Because if you think about it, everything that we're doing is all perceived in the context of one of those senses. We're all hearing each other, we're seeing each other, we can feel each other, punch you in the arm, whatever. Taste, what are they? Smell and taste, right? On those. So everything that you...
I hope I'm not tasting it right now.
Sorry about my smell.
Lights off, right? Yeah. But I mean, honestly, everything that we think about is all in the context of those five senses. So, to me, when I did all that, when I tried to learn it, it kept going back to that, and it kept going back to that, and I was like, well, if I want to know what happens after I die, why don't I try to examine what happened before I was born? Let's think of it as a timeline, sorry. And I thought about that, and I was like, well, maybe it was because I just didn't exist before I was born. You know, I didn't have the biological tissues and the synapses in my brain and all of these things to be a conduit to perceive reality. And maybe when I die and it all disappears, I just don't anymore. And at this point, that's where I would say I am. You know, I said, where are you today? Like, that's where I am. Most of my weight is on that step. You know, I want, like Nick said, I want more than anything, literally anything ever. Like, I can't even describe it. I want there to be something more.
Right.
Like, I do not want to even think that my mother does not exist as a conscious entity. It kills me to think about that, you know. But I can't believe that because I want it to be true, you know. And that's, for me, why, you know, you see all this crap that I'm doing is because that is the one thing that literally just drives me up the wall.
Well, none of it's crap. You're doing awesome things, man.
Agreed.
I mean, I don't know. I mean, I appreciate you saying that. I really do. It means a lot. But, and I want more people to, like, I don't want people, I would never wish this upon anyone because it sucks. It really does suck. I hate it. You know, it literally drives me crazy. But it just, to me, it matters so much. And to me, like, every single second now that I experience is so much more meaningful. And I know you know that.
Right, absolutely.
You know?
I mean, it's twofold. There being an afterlife is definitely comforting. I would love to have the notion of, you know, this life is temporary. I have eternity to spend with my loved ones. But unfortunately, I don't have that belief at this point in my life. I don't think. You know, I don't want to. You know, don't want to go black and white there. Like you said, my foot is on that side at this point. But you know, going through cancer, man, and being an atheist, it's, you know, I live every day like, not like it's my last, but every day like it's meaningful.
Yeah.
You know, and, you know, meaningful could be chilling on the couch with my kids watching stupid cartoon shows. I mean, it doesn't have to be some great thing every day, but I want to enjoy everything.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I just imagine. I can't imagine, like, just observing your daughters playing, like, in the living room. Like, I bet the way you would look at them pre-cancer or post-cancer are two very different things. You know,
it is.
You value, you know, that image and that.
And not only do I think my kids and my wife saved me, because if I often think about this, if I was single, I don't think I would have had the fight to get through it. I just, you know, like, whatever. Because, like, there was one time where I didn't eat for a week when I was going through chemo, and my wife left with the kids. She's like, if you're just going to sit here and die, we're going back to Jonesboro. So she's like, and I called her. I was like, all right, I'll take the pint of blood. Bring me a Subway sandwich. I'll eat. Let's go home. So, but you know, I fought through it for my kids, man. But yeah, I mean, like, I sent out a post on Facebook on Friday, like, man, I'm going ham tonight. Playing Barbies on the floor,
yeah,
watching.
I saw that.
Watching the Power Rangers movie, and I had a great night. It's awesome. I don't need anything more than that, man.
Yeah,
I mean, that's what's important to me.
Can I tell you something, Nick, real quick?
Yeah, sure.
In high school, we were eating lunch together, and you said, "I won't make it past 30." I just want to. It upset me, and I was.
You've told me that before. I think.
Have
I?
I?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, we might have been a little intoxicated because I believe it was our 10-year reunion.
Oh really? Oh wow. Okay. I must. Yeah.
Well, we're not now.
Right, but we're not now. But
that's awesome.
I truly, you know, unless my goal was to party it up and go to the NFL. And I figured if I didn't make it to the NFL, I'm just going to just screw it. I'm just going to live crazy. I don't plan on ever getting married. And if I make it to 30, it's because I'm really lucky. Yeah. And I am really lucky to be here, but albeit for different reasons. Who would have thought? But I would have never thought I would have been married.
Neither would we.
Right. Yeah, well, I mean, yeah, people from high school, that no one would have thought that I would have been married with kids at 23 and had a successful marriage for nearly 7 years.
Especially to Kayla.
Kayla, if you ever listen to this, everybody thinks you're beautiful, and I'm a troll, apparently.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not going to say I didn't look at her once or twice in high school. You know, Molly, I mean, I can say this now.
I think it does have like a big effect on how we approach things, though. As we get older, you know, you look back and you realize how cavalier you were with your health and your well-being.
Seriously, right?
And everything else, you know.
Isn't
And
that
then you
funny?
get a little older and you're like, no, that hurts, that sucks.
And then
know?
you say it,
And I
they
don't
think the
wanna
same
die.
thing you did when
Right.
you were their
Yeah.
age.
Yeah, but when you're in your early 20s, you know,
Youth is wasted on the young,
and,
right?
and not only that, but like I know in my case, like I was idolizing people like Jimi Hendrix and Kurt Cobain and people like that. So I didn't think I was gonna make it till 30 either, because
Right.
I was just like, I'm gonna party and burn out.
Well,
You know, and then you
that's-
hit like 28, 29, and you're like, all right, well, we'll dial it back just a hair. You know, and I kept on for 10 more years
Yep.
and didn't stop drinking until 2 years ago.
That's
so.
such a good point, though, because that's the point. That's why, you know, I want this because I want that to be able to. I want other people to understand it. I don't want people to have to lose their mom or have cancer.
Right.
I don't want that to have to happen for people to really enjoy and truly appreciate life. You know, do this for you guys, man.
Well, and that's, you know, talking about in my early 20s, I mean, that was my plan. I was going to be burnt out. I lived a pretty crazy life in college up until a catastrophic knee injury my junior year in college. I mean, I lived the typical college football player life. But after that knee surgery, when I knew my career was over, it'd be easier to tell you the drugs that I didn't do, because I just did not care. That was my mindset, that what Chad was talking about. I'm not going to live to 30. I don't care. I don't care about having relationships. I'm just going to go absolutely nuts. And then I don't know how I did this, but I ended up graduating from college and then found out that Kayla was pregnant. And I was like, oh, well, now I have to provide for somebody.
Yeah.
Done with everything.
Yeah, party's
okay,
over.
party's over. Well, not party's over, because my life's a party. I love my life,
Yeah.
but it's a different party.
Yeah,
like
exactly.
I have responsibility now. I have a human being that I have to take care
Right.
of. That's the most important now.
Yep. I mean, I think we've basically touched everything that I wanted to. The only things, as I look here, kind of at the template, that I'll just pose the question to you guys. It's obvious. There's religious conflict is probably. Religion is probably the most common reason for most conflict globally at least, and this goes back to our cultural evolution. I think, honestly, if there is other intelligence in the universe, which I am adamantly in support of, I think where we are as a civilization, I feel like, is probably a similar path. You know, I feel like culturally, most civilizations probably have these kinds of existential struggles and, you know, and crises and whatnot, and hopefully we would. Do you think that humanity will graduate? You know, just honest, like, we'll keep it brief here, but what do you think? Do you think we'll ever grow up, for lack of a better term?
I just want to move off this planet.
Well, that's why I want to. That's why I want
to be
terraform.
able to get off this planet.
Yeah, let's
Maybe not me, but I want to see.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah. I want to be around for
Yeah.
what's next. Like,
Yeah, I want to see part of it.
that's why I want to do.
Yeah.
That's actually kind of the underlying goal. Is I want to shift humanity's focus onto
Why we're
this
worried
whole.
about all of
Yeah,
this.
it's like, let's move forward as a species, and that's what I want this to become. Is everyone awakening and being like, guys, come on, team human, let's move forward.
Yeah.
Now let's see what we can really go. You know,
Yeah.
where we can really go. That's what I really want to do.
I think a utopian society is totally possible.
Not even utopia though.
Well, utopia in a sense of
Give them their
not
own
where
planet
there's-
if they don't like us.
Not where there's no suffering. I mean, because people are still not going to do the right things, and not have jobs, and be poverty stricken. Bad things are going to happen to
Human
good people
nature
as well.
takes over.
It's
Right,
going to happen. But touching on it from a religious aspect, something I have trouble wrapping my head around is why it's the main. And it could just be that I'm in a United States bubble and I don't hear about everything else, but it seems like it's the Abrahamic religions that are always fighting each other. It's not the Hindus fighting
Well, it
the
kind of
Buddhists.
is. I mean,
If
Yeah.
if the Gaza Strip can ever get to getting along,
Yeah.
I think that. I mean, but there's still North Korea. That has nothing to do with religion. There's still other conflicts. But as far as a religious standpoint, if the zealot Muslims, Christians, and Jews ever can get along, then yes,
that would pretty much solve a lot of it. I
Right.
mean, you're honestly right, because the rest of, I mean, there is stock to be put in the courts of public opinion. Chad has said this before on a previous episode, is public shaming. Like, generally, people are similar. We're all the same friggin' species, and we tend to have the same values and morals. So, if there is an outlier, society's going to pretty much take care of it in and of itself, you know? If we could remove all of these, the way that we perceive each other, these differences and labels that we have, black, white, Christian, Jew, Muslim, whatever, if those things were removed, the world would change. And all of its perspective. That's why we need an alien invasion. Literally. That is why I'm not even kidding. We need an alien invasion because we need to have an opponent to look at.
I was about to say it certainly
to
unifies.
coalesce.
As a Christian, I think it'd just be nice if we just
My story.
figured out that we're all the old Western religions, Judaism, Islam and Christianity. We're just way too attached to this really crappy real estate.
Yeah.
And if we would just not worry about that, why do we want that? Who cares?
Right.
I mean, if you're carrying it around inside yourself, why do you need this attachment to this chunk of land over there?
Yep.
I don't understand that.
As a devout Christian, do you care about the Middle East? I mean, not from
Israel.
Yeah, not talking about from a humanist perspective. You care about people, I know that,
Right.
but do you care about who has Israel?
On some level, sure. Yeah.
Okay.
See, that's ego, though.
Not
That's
necessarily.
a lot of
of that can be.
Is
I
it?
don't
But I
want
mean,
them tearing down all the.
okay.
Tearing down all the
I
houses
think,
of worship.
If it's like we own this land or you own this land, that is ego, vanity. If it's like, I don't even know. I mean, what's the whole point of that argument anyway? Why does one need the land? What's the whole?
Well, everything that y'all are talking about is Isaac and Ishmael.
Yeah.
Right.
Everything.
Yeah.
It's two tribes. It's Cain and Abel. It's
Which is that an ego clash or is that like a?
I mean, it's. I think you.
It's a who's rider.
Like, if you occupy the land, what do you get?
Well, if you want to get if you want to talk
Like, honestly.
politics of Israel, I mean, could a Jewish man walk outside of Israel and feel as safe as a Palestinian could walk in?
But it has nothing to do with the land. It's the people on the land.
Well, I was going to say, and I guess that was kind of an unfair question because for Muslims to inhabit that land, they would have to kill and slaughter the Jews and take it over. That's not what I was asking because, I mean, obviously you care about that.
Is there
because-
intrinsic value to the property? The dirt and
The
rocks?
idea of Israel, do you really care?
I wish they would just turn the entire area into a museum.
That's what I'm saying.
We could all
for
go
real.
there.
Like-
Everybody could go there.
Like, is there anything other than wanting to win? Is there literally anything driving that fight?
And I
Well, I
guess...
think-
go ahead. I was going to say I pigeonholed you, and I was going to apologize for that.
Oh no! Well, I think if we back up a little bit, even in the conversation, and I would say, and that's that the idea of getting off the planet or the idea of an alien invasion bringing us together would be how temporary. Like in other words, when say we expanded our world, right? So like The Walking Dead, or I'm trying to think of something where your world gets expanded into another area, then that tribalism will then just reinforce
Evolve,
itself
right.
into another state until I believe life evolves into something absolutely meaningless.
That's kind of why I prefer that school of thought because that would actually solve a lot of problems here. Because honestly, if there's not a meaning, if none of that stuff really matters, there's not a reason to fight over it. There's not a reason to fight. It's like The golden rule will be the only law that matters. It's like treat others like you want to be treated.
But then not everybody follows the golden rule.
We're like, I mean, it's like saying
That's
it's
where
like
the courts of public opinion.
we're
come
playing
in.
the
That's why
game. I think
the masses have to adopt that approach, and I think the majority of and that's just a simple. Do you think most people are inherently good or bad? That's how simple all of it boils down to. And I think most people are inherently, generally they understand. We have the ability as and this is my whole argument. Humans are the only species that have evolved to the ability to experience the emotion of empathy, to experience the emotions that the other guy feels when you're killing and eating him. We understand that. So we have the ability to understand what it means to have that done to us. And that is the sole dictating principle that would cause us to get along.
I think people inherently have the ability to be good, but I also think that people are inherently very selfish.
I think we're all just kind of...
That's why we're selfish. We get how we don't want to be treated, and that's the only reason we don't treat other people bad is because we know everyone else is going to kill us and punish us for it.
Right.
So it's a selfish motivation, which is totally fine with me. I'm totally fine as long as it causes the end result is people treating each other nicely.
I think worldwide, we're all just awkwardly trying to be happy with our limited understanding of things, and some people are really cognizant of other people and trying not to hurt other people, and some people don't care if they hurt other people to be happy. And it's, that's the big difference. Some people don't want to hurt other people to be happy.
Well, I think that's also a sliding scale, though.
Yeah,
I think that's not a binary switch.
Right.
I think
But
it's
I'm
like
saying
Jaime Lannister. Most people don't care about hurting people they don't know. Most people don't want people that they have stock in. And I honestly believe that's the point where we will exist level. I think that we will do always what is good for us and ours. And we're really never going to care about other people that we don't have any stock in. No. I think that's going to be the ultimate dictator.
It's outside of your sphere of influence.
So we just have to figure out a way to manipulate society to get that groupthink as high level as possible to avoid those internal conflicts. So if we need aliens to make humans get along, so be it. I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
I'm perfectly okay with that. That's my point.
Well, on a base level, I understand what you're saying, but like you have those realms of, I know I've talked a lot about my kids.
But compassion.
Obviously, they mean a lot to me, but I would do some bad things to make sure that if it was the right thing for my kids.
Yeah.
But I don't have to, thankfully. I do live a good life. I am a good person, but do I feel for, bringing up North Korea again, I feel for people in North Korea, but at the same time, I'm not doing anything to help them.
Well, okay, that's what I'm saying. Like, it's okay. Like, we're compassionate. I think most people are compassionate. We empathize. We don't like seeing that happen. But ultimately,
it's out of sight, it's out of mind.
Yeah, but ultimately, like, the lengths you would have to go to cause any tangible change do not offset the sacrifices in your life and your loved ones' lives.
Right.
And that, to me, is a perfectly ethically fine stance to have. That's reason.
I think a part of how good people are is you have to kind of look at or how good or how bad is what principles were instilled in these people as children, and what would happen if those principles were absent from the situation altogether, and then trace back and try to understand the heart of or the spirit of what that principle is and trace it back. That's kind of where my interest is as far as like the religious aspect goes. But I think
it's very much nature versus nurture.
I feel
that is a big governing principle here, and there probably will never be an answer to that.
Well, when we try to set up utopia, I feel like it's like the button. It's like, would you push it's like you have you have a button. It's like a 50-50 chance. It's like everyone dies or everyone lives harmoniously forever. It's like, would you push it? That's
it's existential. I mean, it's the question of questions.
Yeah,
Yeah. And I tried at the like to insert those little dilemmas, like if we collapsed as a society, if like there's a situation where they're trying to find a weapon, it's like, well, if we steal weapons from these guys, we're screwing them, but is that okay? It's like,
if zombie apocalypse happens, I'm totally going to be Rick. I mean, I don't know if I would be as awesome as Rick, but I'm taking care of my kids by any means necessary.
That's when you
morality
learn,
would go completely out of the window.
That is when you learn who you are in that arena. When all the stops are pulled, that's when you really peel back the layers, and that's what I'm interested in learning is who people really are, the reality. And realness. And that's really the only thing that I'm concerned with. And that's why I quit business. Like, I cannot stand the facade behind it. I cannot stand the fake.
Oh, the fake was going to be exactly what I said. When I was in sales and people were just so
flinging business cards and shit.
You're right.
It's like,
well, and just they're so excited about being a salesman at Verizon Wireless,
right.
And they're like, "I love Verizon." I'm like, "Do you really, bro?" Because I hate this.
Exactly. See, and that is exactly what I could not stand, man. No offense to you if you sell for Verizon Wireless or if you, anything for that matter.
He did it.
But yeah, no, we've all been there. We all understand it. It's like, come on, man.
Serving for the same reasons.
It's like, it's like, I did it for a while, and
it's like you don't really love
capable of it.
You don't really love sales. You love the money that's in your bank account. So I guess you can be excited about that. But I guess money wasn't that big of a deal for me.
So I don't know, and I'm vehemently supportive of calling those people out when in making things awkward. I love awkward situations like that. I relish them, as a matter of fact, as many of you probably know that already. But I absolutely thrive in those kind of environments when things get uncomfortable, and you can call people out for that.
Can I ask a moral question?
Absolutely.
Sure.
If happiness is the driving force of our lives, would there be a moral problem with everybody being hooked up to a happiness machine?
Absolutely not. If my consciousness is better served by constant happiness, and my basis of a quality life is happiness, then no.
Are you aware that you're hooked up to the Matrix?
It depend. I would imagine that you would have to eventually lose that, because then you would that conflict would be a problem.
Right.
Well, you're asking the question, so you would have to be aware of it at least at the beginning.
Yeah. Sure.
Okay. Well, here's my thing. I wouldn't willfully subject myself to a happiness machine and just be a vegetable. But because well, I guess from the standpoint of, can my kids be there? Can my wife be there?
You wouldn't know, right? And it's just hypothetical. You wouldn't know that you're in a happiness machine.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I guess I wouldn't have a problem with it.
But would it even matter if you did?
It wouldn't matter to me.
It wouldn't matter. It's like It's like when somebody tells you, like a Christian says, "Well, your dog's not going to be in heaven, but it'll be heaven anyways."
Yeah, right.
It's like, well, it sucks, but whatever. It's heaven. It can't. It's
like what would be
perfect, right? So,
I mean, if the most important question you ask is, what do you want to accomplish? What do you want in life? Like, what do you want in life? Yeah, to me, the most simple answer is happiness. Utility, they call it in economics. You want to maximize utility while decreasing the costs. It's like, how can I suck as much happiness as possible?
But there's my problem with it. I would not be happy without my family. No matter what was going on. If I was consciously aware that I was not actually being with my family, would not be happy.
But in this hypothetical, your happiness would exist just simply because it's being fed to you. Your basis of happiness is there. It's just going.
Well, if I'm not consciously aware that that's what's happening, sure, yeah. I'd be perfectly
that would
fine
be the
with
scenario,
it.
right?
But if it's a situation of, hey, hook up to this happiness machine, you can live your life completely happy.
But then you're not.
Then I wouldn't be.
That would change the variables.
Right.
So it's actually a big fan question that goes around. It goes around the internet, kind of cyclically. It comes back, but is there anything wrong with being Cypher from the Matrix and wanting to go back?
Ignorance is bliss.
I was about to say, ignorance is bliss, man.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. I think
But with Cypher, though, he was going to be hooked back up and not be aware that he was
he
ever
did it
out of it.
sadistically. Like, he would know, and he's manipulating people like we're in a Matrix. You don't know that. But, like,
Right.
you know, he's a dick. But if the whole point is to be
Neo
happy,
was like, F this, I'm back.
yeah, right. If the point is to be happy and you have a solution at hand, who their right mind would not just accept the solution? You know, you're just creating a problem to have a problem. That's most
But you do
See,
have the
that's-
question: what if there was an interruption of the happiness?
Again, that
the
detracts.
possibility of an interruption of the happiness at some point down the road. it would
What
just
is
be an
the
addiction
question
at that
then
point.
becomes? What is the alternative?
Well, I think the paradigm to accept if you're going to do this would be that you already live in a matrix, right?
Right.
So
Yeah.
there's happiness in this matrix, and
Do
there's
you want
suffering in
a
this
perfect matrix or an imperfect matrix?
Right.
Well, I mean, I would absolutely, if, like I said, in this hypothetical situation, if I'm living in a matrix and there's imperfect and perfect,
Duh.
I'm going to choose the perfect. But as then they say in the Matrix,
But.
you don't accept it because suffering is a human thing. You know there's going to be suffering. As much as I like my life now, there's still a lot of suffering in it.
Yeah.
That's
But
my
then-
romantic.
But your mind could reject it just because there's no challenge to anything.
Right.
What is your mind to do?
The what is it in I ask y'all this all the time. Watchmen, the guy.
Dr. Manhattan?
Yeah, Dr. Manhattan problem. It's like, you know, he's like, isn't there a scene
But
where
he's
he's
not
like,
happy.
he's like, and that's what I'm saying. He's not happy because he's reached the pinnacle of
Because his
existence.
blue
What?
lungs hang
There
down.
is nothing to aspire
Do
toward.
y'all keep up with
He's
DC
banging his
comics at
girl,
all?
but he's doing
He
this, and he's
created
like,
a whole
shit.
universe of DC comics.
Yeah, that's what I was saying.
the
I
New 52,
follow.
yeah.
I follow DC Comics quite religiously.
It's not abundantly clear we're all super nerds here.
Right. Yes.
You're
But
wearing
he's.
a Batman ring for.
I've got a Batman tattoo right here.
That's
Yeah.
pretty awesome.
Yeah. Step into my office. Right?
But he's and my daughter's convinced that I'm Batman, and I just let her.
Nice.
Yeah.
Just let her have that thought.
My son was convinced until last year, and he was like, "You're not really Batman." I'm like, "Don't tell your sister." And so whenever she says something about me being Batman, he's like, "I really want to tell her." I'm like, "Don't. It's awesome."
That is so funny.
But what I was saying about Manhattan, he's actually the kind of benevolent god in the rebirth of DC now. He's created pocket universes, and he's the man behind the mirror, so
Really?
to speak. Yeah.
See, that's the kind of guy you want behind the mirror. You don't want a jerk back there. You know.
Well, he's kind of the villain right now, so we'll see.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So I haven't kept up.
That's just what he wants you to think.
Yeah, right.
Well, I mean, he's the Magneto type of villain, though. There hadn't been a whole lot done about it. He's going to be the big bad, but he's the big bad for his right reasons.
Yeah,
I'm going to take control of this, change this, because I know better than you.
Well, that's always, I think, in any good villain, I think that's, and I'm trying to do that with Yuri, you know, at least, you want them to have a higher, like, you don't want them just to be hated. You don't want them to be just evil. You want them to be evil for a benevolent reason.
Best
kind of,
lies are the ones
know?
that you want to go.
like, yeah, like that's, you know.
Except for the Joker, because everybody loves the Joker just because he's
Right.
crazy.
Yeah.
But when he says, "I'm ahead of the curve,"
Mm-hmm.
there's something about that. It's like,
So,
might be
yeah.
onto something there, bud.
Right. So,
That's-
and I was like, I don't know, you read all these elements like other, and I was like, what can I do? And that's why he blows, you know, there's one spoiler or whatever. He blows a ship up that's going to save the world, but he does it because he wants to replace it with his own. Because he wants to, you know, mine the asteroid to get this stranglehold of oil, you know, because we're so addicted to stripping our Earth, whatever. But I don't know. Does anyone? We've covered a lot. Does anyone have any? The floor is y'all's. Does anyone have anything they want to say?
Sure. I believe that life, in most of its totality, is terrible and it's suffering, and that
Love it.
I thought I'm supposed to be the cynic.
He's ahead of the curve.
Yeah. Yeah.
that the point of it is in the midst of it to push on to. I believe that the whole point of life is family. I believe that is the core idea of what God put us here for, was to the family to be together and to grow, and fruits of our labor. and I believe responsibility there is the absolute purpose of life, and to push on in spite of all the crap and all the terrible things and all the suffering, but to be honest, tell the truth. And
It almost makes me cry when you say that, because like, and this, I don't talk about this part of it a lot, but like, I think about that all the time, dude. Like, I would love to have a family.
Yeah.
You know, but I know internally that if I had a family, I would stop all of this.
You have to make sacrifices for it. Like
I know I would. I would
Right.
stop. I
Well, I
would
mean,
be
I can-
satisfied, and
I can still do football at the
sucks.
high school level, but I've passed up on a great deal of opportunities in my earlier life that I can't, that I'm not willing to do at this point. I can't go be a GA somewhere and make
Yeah.
$5,000 a year and do that and then move my way up into college. I have to be a teacher and a coach, which I'm happy with. But yeah, there's sacrifices that have to be made. And this is going to be the last thing I say, but I find it very interesting that the two people that are kind of on the opposite ends of the religion topic hold the same values to a T.
Right.
That is my number one thing, that the family unit is the most important thing to me, and for me to live a good life. Not so much successful in, career sense. I want to be successful in that, but the thing that's important to me is provide for that family unit. And if I've done that, I've had a successful life.
yeah, no, I completely agree. And again, that's like Mike's the message behind the nitty gritty. It's like, yeah, at the end of the day, at the end of the conversation, what do we come out of it and realize? And yeah, that's what is valuable in life, and that is, I don't know, like losing mom. I just want everyone to understand that, because if everyone understood that, we'd stop freaking fighting, and it's like, who's gonna make that freaking happen? It's like, come on. How long have we existed as humans? How long have we been around here? Depending on which doctrine you
I was about to say,
5,000 years, give or
How
take.
the
5,000 years, give or take.
fuck, I'm sorry, have we not gotten that yet?
Dinosaurs are fake.
Like, what in the world? Dinosaurs are fake. Don't even get me
I was
started.
about to say, don't bring my son in here.
But why
He's a junior paleontologist.
Like,
He will
but
tell you
honestly-
all.
Yeah.
Why don't we get it yet? It's like, we have to eventually, and that's the only way I look at it. It's like, it's just, something has to happen to shift everyone's focus and attention, and this conversation has to be blasted out to the entire world for this to ever.
But there's a fear there, though, because I'm honestly apprehensive about doing this podcast. What if someone listens to this and knows? Because I certainly, being in the Bible Belt, I don't. Well, not anymore. Used to, but now that I'm a public teacher, I don't blast my views like I used to.
But
I
this-
don't get in Facebook arguments. I actually created a whole nother Facebook account
Right.
because I don't want.
But is that a world,
cousin
Nick?
jumps
I'll block
Facebook
off
says-
everyone except friends.
Is that a
Apparently, I
world that
work
you
at
want to
my
live
size
in,
thinking
where
Tina.
you have to be
Yeah.
afraid to have this conversation because you're afraid of what other people are going to think about it?
No, absolutely not.
That's
That's why.
what-
That's why.
Exactly. That's the barrier that's the obstacle we're trying to overcome. The judgment. We're trying to break down these barriers in our minds and open them. And that is the entire purpose of how the world should really work. Like, that's the entire concept behind it all. That's the end game. So, yeah. I mean, I'm glad you said that, because that's a perfect illustration of the problem that we have to overcome. And anybody listening, do not judge this man, because this man is a good person.
Thank you.
Care what you think. No, I do care what you think, but if you think he's a bad person, I don't. 'Cause that makes you a bad person.
I think how I'd like to finish it is we see it every day in the news, this butting heads between science and religion, and I in no way understand why that's even a thing. I don't understand why that's a thing.
It's
at
ego!
all, because
It's ego. They
I
want to be
think if
right.
Somebody wants to be more right than
That's
somebody else.
everything is ego, man.
And whether you are religious or not, if you're not reevaluating things on a day-to-day basis, you're not growing as a person. So, just like you said earlier, a true God doesn't care about scrutiny.
Right.
You know, and
He's God.
Yeah, we have no influence over that. We are not a threat to God.
Guys, hey, I
So-
created you.
Yeah.
Remember?
So like, you know,
Okay,
and,
think of
and
me.
for me,
Like,
you know, I said earlier on that to me, and to a lot of biblical scholars, like Revelations is a little bit sketchy because of the history around it and because of the Council of Nicaea and all that stuff, and Rome had their power everywhere, and so you know, there was a lot of pressure for the Bible not to end on a high note, to be honest, because you know, they would have seen, you know, Jesus as this crazy hippie. I mean, you know what I'm saying? So there was a lot of pressure from Rome and the global powers for it not to end, you know, with the high part of everything. So, like, to me, and I still consider myself a Christian, the Revelations isn't necessary because, to me, I'd rather have a God cheering us on, seeing how far we can go, as opposed to, well, here's the bookend, this is how I'm going to end it.
Exactly.
It doesn't seem necessary.
You're exactly right.
And, you know, let's just all, like, get over all this.
Yeah.
You believe what you believe, as long as we're not hurting each other, you know, let's go out in space.
That's
Who
man.
cares?
See, like, I just wish everyone understood that. Like, I wish we just bottle what you just said, just freaking pour it all over every single human being on this damn planet. You know, just bathe in reason and logic and cohesiveness. So, can you tell how much it matters to all of us? You know, it's like anything else. Before we end here, thank y'all. Obviously, again.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Everybody that's tuned in this season, thank you for putting up with all the crap in the background you've heard. And again, that's the kind of the whole point. We don't really care about a studio. We don't care. Like, if you hear a baby in the background, if you hear the next door, what is it? The cleaners. Yeah, like, none of that really matters. You know, focus on the point, the conversation, and the content. So, as always, we're going to end with a poem and then a couple announcements on moving forward. So the poem is this, and then Nick, you're a poet too. I like that. I don't have a title because I just read it again before we started. But what do I know? What do I think? Can this all end within a blink? What does this mean? What purpose served? It's killing me, my mind's unnerved. For all I want, the only thing, is this worth it all, this worshipping? Please God, hear me, I speak the truth, no need to hide this, no, I think I mistyped this, but I said, please God, hear me, I speak the truth, no need to hide this, no cold veiled booth. Are you out there? I need to know, for if you are, you have my soul. And the whole point of that is, if he really is out there, you know, like, yeah, I'm, you know, thanks for making me. Like, I get it, I appreciate it and all that, but, like, if you were me, God, like, would you think you were real? Like, probably not, you know? So you can't really blame me, I don't think, for doubting, if that makes sense.
That's my views totally.
You know, it's like a reasonable God, you know, unless there's something I'm not
the most
getting.
devout person's lying if they don't say they doubted it. So,
Yeah, it's like, you know, it's not fair to be branded a bad person if you say you doubt it, and I just can't stand that, you know. So thank all of the listeners again. So moving forward, this is our season finale. Moving forward, we're going to shift our focus into the actual organization. So, membership. We are now going to actively market our membership database. We are currently in talks with some organizations, partnering with them, that we're going to bring some volunteering opportunities. And because I know there's a lot of people out there that would want to do stuff like that would want to get involved in this, that don't because they just haven't taken the time to, the initiative to kind of seek it out, because there's effort involved. I don't know, however that sounds or whatever, but so we are trying to do that effort for you, you know, and really just bring people together. Is really as sappy as that sounds, but basically make the world a better place and not suck as bad as it does. So please stay tuned for that. Get involved. We'll do what, I don't know what we're gonna have planned. We'll meet after this, moving forward. And again, thank you guys. Share this if you can. Do whatever you can to expose the point. And thank you guys. Again.
Thank you.
Where do you share it on?
Oh, good. I'm glad you asked. See, I'm not good at this. Like, that's what we should probably be planning before. Share this on Facebook. We have a Facebook page, facebook.com. Good. Why don't we do this at the end every time?
I don't know.
You should probably just record that.
Yeah, you're probably
Not a
right.
bad idea.
Book into
See,
it.
where are you guys on that, man? You know,
Wow.
somebody's got to. Hey, Matt's a good
Look,
idea.
man, I just hit press play, okay?
Facebook.com/How the World Should Work. Instagram page, our username is How the World Should Work. Twitter, follow us at ChangeForceAll. What else do we have?
LinkedIn.
We have a LinkedIn. I think it's I thinked How the World Should Work. YouTube, we have that. We only put our first 2 episodes on it so far because we procrastinated. But it's there. /How the World Should Work.
SoundCloud yet?
SoundCloud, we've got one of those. But we haven't really done anything with it yet, but it's there. So follow us on that. What else? Anything? There's too much crap, man. Somebody needs to, like, tie all these things together. Hey.
Delete that last part.
Don't let anyone know
But for real, man. What else? Is there anything else?
We on.
I think
We're probably. I'm not going to say the YP Nashville thing yet. I don't know if that's going to happen yet. HowTheWorldShouldWork.com.
and there's that.
There's that. Buy my book. Continuity. Amazon, some other places. Google. All places. Yeah. Thank you guys. I love you all.